Like everyone with their like fucking I'm gonna offend a lot of people right now, but I'm gonna do it in a way where I hope that people don't get offended. I'm like really sick of everyone making everything about race.
Yeah.
Like I'm kind of over it, and I know that I am the one person who's not allowed to say that because I am a white, privileged, blonde 28-year-old. So I get that. I'm saying it, I know, but I have a podcast and it's an outlet to say what I think, and if you don't want like what I think or what I have to say, then like you don't have to listen to it. You can turn it off or unfollow me, whatever. But like everyone giving their impassioned speeches about race and all of that stuff, I'm like, why is it always just about African Americans? Like, why aren't the Asians being like, we're not represented? Why aren't like, I don't know, like Native Americans and Latinos being like, we're not represented? Why is it that they're like, it's always just that? And then like whenever they get upset, then everybody has to go above and beyond to then make them happy. Yeah. And I hate saying the word them because I'm not everybody's the same. So I mean the ones that are like out there bitching about things. Because it's not, I don't think people aren't being nominated because of their skin color. Maybe you weren't nominated last year because you didn't do that great of a job in your movie.
Yeah, your movie wasn't so good.
Like, it's not about race. It's literally, like, not about what you look like at all. It's like your acting abilities. So, like, what the actual fuck?
These gays, they're trying to murder me.
What do I think of her?
Yes.
I don't think of her.
Read about that in the New York fucking Post.
Welcome back to Watch What Happens Live. My name is Andy Cohen, and I'm here to tell you today that after massive pressure from the viewers, we are shutting down Watch What Happens Live permanently.
No!
That's right. This is the very last Watch What Happens Live broadcast, and I just want to say here in front of all of you that it's been a fucking blast.
Andy, no!
Now, excuse me. I have some housewives to do cocaine with backstage. Woo! Hello, everybody. Welcome to Eating for Free. Podcast recording live from the absolute edge of the internet. My name is local Andy Cohen cocaine drug use investigator, John Summers.
And this is your local harm reduction expert, Matthew Lawson. How are we doing?
We're doing good. We're doing good. You know, it's funny that, like, after all these years, after all these years and all these shenanigans and all that shenanigans and all that Zionism, what might get Andy Cohen out of here is cocaine. Like, that actually is something that truly, like, I'm grappling with in a major way, that, like, that's where our culture is at now, that, like, both doing cocaine is something that people feel is, like, should be criminalized and also makes you a bad person.
I can tolerate Zionism, but cocaine use is where I draw the line. Sometimes
Zionism in Hollywood,
far.
That's okay. Sexual assault, that's okay. Rampant racism in the industry, that's also okay. But I draw the line at cocaine. It's just like,
oh, honey.
Whoa, our whole culture really is run by a pack of lunatics, isn't it?
Yeah, that's tragic.
This episode also is about a pack of wild beasts known as the Vanderpump Rules cast, and
some tragedy in these headlines. That's
we like to hear on the podcast now in the 8th episode of our Vanderpump Rules series. God. You know, I like to do this game where every week I try to change it up a little bit, right? Like 1 week we're talking about property, 1 week we're talking about, you know, Kristen Dowdy starring in a film about Nazi puppets. One episode, you know, maybe I'm going to give you a little bit about Ariana Madix in a lingerie football league. And sometimes we're going to go a couple years at a time. Sometimes whole decades pass in a single episode. But today we're focusing on one very important year. Probably the most important year in Vanderpump Rules. Now, you're going to think I'm talking about 2023. But I'm not talking about 2023. You might think I'm talking about 2020. I'm not talking about 2020 either. You might even think I'm talking about 2016. And you're close, but no. What we're actually talking about today
a little over.
is September 11th, 2001. Could you imagine?
Oh my God.
Could you imagine?
The way I have the notes in front of me and I was like, wait.
Could you imagine? I was like, actually, Matt, just so you know, I had you take notes on the wrong thing
This
just
is
to
the 9/11
lead you off.
episode,
Yeah.
actually.
Well, this is an episode actually about
A personal?
This is sort of
9/11?
15 9/11s this episode, as Joe Biden would describe it. No, I've been thinking about that clip of Sarah Palin giving her like Vogue fashion retrospective. And she's like, well, it was after 9/11, so we were all different.
Exactly.
We were all different. That's Tom Sandoval moving from St. Louis to New York and living in a hotel. He's like, it's after 9/11. We were a little different. Every time him and Jax would kissy kiss in the dark of night.
Every time they touch hands on the sheet that separates their two beds.
I'm getting ready tonight to watch a double feature of Vanderpump Rules, the Vanderpump Rules after show, and The Valley. Now we're a podcast recapping 3 different TV shows. And you guys are going to have to wait till next week to talk about it. But this week, actually, switching gears a little bit, I just wanted to give a preface at the top of the episode that this is not an episode entirely about this, nor are we going to linger on it very long, nor are we going to give like excessive details. Of course, we will show our work, link our sources. You can find out this information for yourself on your own, off the air, at your own discretion. But this episode does concern conversations about domestic violence. So we will give you plenty of advance notice as we get to that part of the episode. It should not last very long. And I will give sort of like a rough estimate for, when we're going to be done talking about it. So I wanted to get that out of the way first, because I don't want anyone to feel surprised by that or feel like it came out of left field or that they're not prepared for it. I just wanted to say it is not the entire episode by any means. It is a fraction of our episode, but it is sort of a pivotal moment in the episode. So just wanted to give everyone a warning about it in advance. But no, we're talking about 2017 today. 2017 is a big year in the world of Vanderpump Rules. 2016 sort of shows them at, as we saw last episode, the apex of the kind of fame they could have in the beginning, what was available to them, the kind of press they were getting. They were trying to brand themselves and really branch out into celebrities off TV. And their efforts for that failed. We see a lot of them try to spin out various careers, products, acting jobs, all sorts of stuff. And it doesn't work. Their attempts to sort of break free of the shackles of the show are ultimately unsuccessful, unfruitful for them. A lot of them sort of pivot. We have people that quit the show, I think, thinking that there is a world out there for them.
Unfortunately.
Come crawling back.
Is not.
And in 2017, a few sort of cascading series of events happen that both irreparably alter the trajectory of Vanderpump Rules forever, but also sort of define what the next era of the Vanderpump Rules fame will entail.
Because this is kind of the point where everyone stops working at SUR.
Yeah.
Nobody has jobs.
Sort of the part. No one has
detached.
jobs. And the culture is starting to really pay attention to Vanderpump Rules in a big way. It is by no means like the number one show in America. It is not competing with like the gold standards of reality television, like some of the Housewives or even more so The Bachelor, those sorts of things. Like it is it is common amongst a very specific demographic of millennials, and I would assume maybe Gen Z, but Gen Z, not Gen Z, the Gen X culture writers are sort of late to the party, right? The people really beating the drums of Vanderpump Rules are like this like early decade, mid-decade millennial culture writer archetype, of which I was formerly a part of that sort of class of like
you are recovering
late millennials. Yeah.
I survived the 2010s.
Late to the millennial party, early to the Gen X party culture writers that are working at places like The Cut, Jezebel, even places like Vulture, stuff like that, sort of are like really beating this drum. And then, of course, we have the Hollywood Lives, we have the Radar Onlines, we have the TMZs sort of like carrying the gossip forward. But we start to see things like in places that we might not expect. You get people like Emily Nussbaum writing about Vanderpump Rules, which was sort of seen as a big deal by critics at the time who like paid attention to Bravo, because people like Emily Nussbaum were sort of tastemakers in the television criticism world. I would personally contest the taste in question, but
it's like the mainstream, you could say.
Sort of like, okay, we've sort of like crossed into something here with like the New Yorker paying attention. So let's start at the very beginning of 2017. Stassi is once again profiled by Complex, which I found pretty funny because if you actually look at last week's headline, it's basically the same headline, just sort of worded differently. Like Stassi Schroeder is a villain was the first Complex headline. She gets profiled in Complex a year later, and again the headline is Stassi Schroeder of Vanderpump Rules is the most lovable villainess on reality TV, which is like, okay, we've literally done this already with, and it's like with
but in
the
case
exact same outlet. So I'm like, she really was calling in those people at Complex. So I'm going to just read from a few paragraphs here, so bear with us. This is in Complex. It was published February 11th, 2017. Stassi Schroeder of Vanderpump Rules is the most lovable villainess on reality TV. Vanderpump Rules' ascent into the zeitgeist has been a gradual one. No longer just relegated to Bravo-holics, it's been covered by the New Yorker's Emily Nussbaum, and most recently, the New York Times did a piece about a bar crawl the cast did in New York City to promote season 5. Vanderpump has filled a void in reality TV that we didn't even realize was missing. Amongst the housewives, the bachelors and the bachelorettes, and the myriads of singers and chefs, there wasn't really anything about working 20-somethings. People who were beautiful, surely, but who weren't quite rich, living out their supremely messy lives. Centering on a group of typically hot LA babes who work at Lisa Vanderpump's SUR, the show carries on a gilded legacy established by classics like Jersey Shore, The Hills, and Gallery Girls. And a little bit into it, she is kind of talking about how Stassi comes off on TV versus how she comes off in interviews. Quote, Stassi is more than capable of addressing the jarring difference between the on-screen persona and her real-life personality. Even back then in season 1, I was not a scary person. Season 1, you're watching my reaction to people who I think are assholes. I would never be rude to somebody that I've just met. She continues, quote, I take full responsibility for the things I said, the things I did, but you're not seeing every side of everything. You're only seeing my mean reactions. I'm a little more frustrated this season because I didn't feel that. I'm not a bad influence on my friends. It's not like that at all. Unless I'm incredibly delusional or unself-aware.
Well.
And Stassi, I will think just in this moment right now, looking back on this specific piece now, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 8 years later. No, it's 8 years later. Wait, right? Yeah,
no,
all of 2017. No,
Mama.
wait, all of 17, all of 18, all of 19, all of 20, all of 2021, all of 2022, 23, 24, 8. Okay.
24
great.
minus 17 is 7.
It's 8. It's 8 years.
Y'all can roast her in the comments.
That's 8. 8 girl math is 17 plus 8 is
an
24.
even number minus an odd number is an even number. Sure.
Matt.
Sure.
It's 8 for sure. I'm kidding. Oh my God. Okay, so This is my favorite part of this. So there's this paragraph here that really sort of seals the deal. So she goes from saying, I'm incredibly delusional or unself-aware, and then says, quote, a man interrupts, telling Stassi that his wife would never forgive him if he didn't get a selfie with her. She's warm and kind to him, takes the picture, and tells him to tell his wife hello. I ask her about how Vanderpump has seemingly exceeded popularity with this new season, how binging the show may have been a form of self-care for many after the 2016 election.
Oh my God.
You know what? It makes me feel like I have a little extra sense of purpose, she responds with a laugh. I can take people out of their depression over what's going on in the world. It makes me feel like, okay, I'm not worthless. I think it's very easy when you're doing a reality show to be like, what the fuck am I contributing to the world right now? What am I doing? So that makes me feel a little better.
I don't know how to grapple that, honestly.
So around the same time, actually, as this complex story comes out, a story reemerges from a 2015 podcast that then is repeated on her own podcast that we talked about last week, Straight Up with Stassi. That has, I think, since been canceled. Do you want to check on that for me just to make, when was it last published? I think it was in,
let's do a double check.
Well, I know that she has a mommy.
It's been canceled and brought back.
Well, she has like a mommy podcast with Bo, I believe, but I'm just like a mommy daddy podcast with Bo. But like, I think Straight Up with Stassi got canceled.
No, Straight Up with Stassi is still publishing every week.
It's still publishing every week.
Every single week, yep.
Okay,
as recent as 12 hours ago.
It must have gone on hiatus for a little bit because I remember it getting canceled again after 2020, but we'll get there in the notes. Mm-hmm. So in 2015, on a podcast interview, she confessed to using Adderall on Vanderpump Rules, and then it sort of came up again in 2016 and in 2017 on her own podcast. She says, quote, on Straight Up with Stassi, when I started season 3, I had just quit Adderall. I was like, I'm not going to be good. I don't know if I can actually do this without taking a drug. I didn't need it. None of my castmates needed it. But oh my God, I was so skinny when I was on it. It was the best. Hey, it was a big part of my life. So why the hell not? So speaking of like, if she should continue talking about it on her podcast, and she says, quote, so that's that. It's the worst drug I've ever taken. I swear to God, I feel like it's the worse than Coke because you get so addicted to it because it's a pill. And so you think you're okay. But it made me absolutely psycho and it made me depressed all the time. Now,
yep.
We're talking about this too because we know for a fact that Adderall usage is like rampant in the Bravo sphere. I would say especially amongst the millennial shows. I think before cocaine was in the mix, Carl Radke talked about being on Adderall. I know that Jax has also been accused of being on Adderall. I think there was someone else who came forward and said that they had an addiction to Adderall or were like not taking Adderall anymore. I want to say
it was Kristen, but not 100% sure.
And also we know that rumor, allegedly, I'm saying this all just like in the rumor sphere, circulated about Tom Sandoval for a while too. Yeah. Now, for those of you who don't take Adderall recreationally, obviously I would not recommend it. And
you can also take it more than just taking a pill. You can do other ways.
I'm just saying, like, for those of you who have never done it before, when Adderall doesn't work in its intended way on you, meaning it's like not serving sort of like a medical interventionist
you don't
function,
have ADHD or other
it's like speed.
Issues.
It's literally just speed, you know, and that's what it does to your body. And it makes you have like really weird symptoms, manic. It can make you hyper fixated. It can make you really hyperactive. It can sort of cause you to lose sleep.
You
or
don't
go
eat
like
a lot
really
of the
long
time.
Periods of times, without eating. And then
combine that with
eating,
drinking, and everything else.
Yeah, especially with like the not eating and the being up for a long time, you can like do those sort of like hunger, insomnia fueled like hallucinations on it. Like exactly. I had a friend who would say like I would literally be like strung out. I hadn't eaten in like a day, and it's like 4 a.m. and I'm like hearing voices because I'm like so tired and like messed up on Adderall.
I'll do that too.
And like, again, like it's something that can be easily abused. So we know that that's like something that's like pretty common with Vanderpump Rules. I would say the Adderall stuff is sort of hung over the show. And what Stassi sort of gets at in this that is going to come up much later is that she believed in the beginning that she didn't know how to do reality TV without the Adderall because the way that reality television was set up for them on Vanderpump Rules, it's like very long shooting days. You're drinking a lot, so your energy levels feel low.
And they're working.
There's not always food. You're working, and it's at night too. So that is where you get things like Adderall or cocaine in the mix because it helps you film into the long hours and stay active when cameras go down and you have to keep the energy up for the next scene while they're setting up the next shot. Because again, like, remember, for those of you who are like completely clueless to the way that reality TV works, like,
it's so overstimulating. There's so much to be aware of.
Very overstimulating. Every reality television star I've ever talked to talks about how it is completely overstimulating and draining. But also, like, say, you know, you have a 2-shot at a table and they want you to have a conversation, and then they're going to set up another group shot afterwards, and then you have to get set up for that. You have to wait them to get the lights up. Maybe you're going to take a break in filming because you're going from sort of like day to night, and you have to keep your energy levels up, right? Like, you've been drinking all day. If you're on vacation, it's hot. You've been in the sun, and now you have to like get perked up for dinner, right? And you can sort of see this on certain reality shows. Yeah, where you're like, wow, they seem like a little off, right? Like,
a little intense.
I think we all know why the intensity happens or where that comes from. But again, like, we're not accusing anyone of doing anything, nor are we like definitively saying. We're just like sort of using what's been offered to us here.
I just keep thinking of that example, and Tom admitted this. This is like everywhere you can find it. But that scene, I think it's a season or two after 2017, where Stassi's doing her book tour and she wants to have one of these stops for the signing at Tom Tom. And Tom gets angry because Schwartz had agreed to it, but Tom didn't, and et cetera, et cetera. And they had this fight. And famously on the show, they're fighting in front of Tom Tom. And they admit later they filmed that like 7 times because a siren came in at one point. Stassi wasn't in camera the right way. Like, these people got in the way. Oh, well, you know, you forgot to mention this detail. Can you like do it again? And they're literally doing this scene 7 times. That's fucking exhausting. Like, I couldn't even imagine. Like, all right, fight again. And I'm like, no wonder you need a stimulant because that's a lot of fucking work.
Yeah, no, it's not a real way to like work or live or even like, I mean, movies also have, I would say,
famously
stimulant problems.
Yeah.
And it is because it's like not really a natural way to work. So in March of that same year, she is once again on her podcast. And Matt, I want you to,
Ooh, girl.
I want you to read this headline for me.
Thanks for saving this one for me. Pump Roll Stassi Schroeder is sick of talking about race. Quote, why is it always African Americans?
Yes. So I'm getting this information, just like sort of the quotes specifically from Hollywood Life, because I don't believe this episode exists on her podcast anymore, but also like it was the first place that I found full block quotes of it. So on a podcast in March, she is talking about the Oscars. And if anyone remembers, this was the year of Oscars So White being in the mix. Also, the La La Land Moonlight mix-up, famously. So people in like the ether were talking about Black Lives Matter. They were talking about Oscars So White. They were talking about what happened to Barry Jenkins. They're talking about sort of like the Oscars as a whole. And I think like the first episode of this podcast we ever did was was famously the Oscars directly after this one when Me Too broke. So it was just like a run of really significantly bad years for the Oscars, and I would say they still haven't recovered. I digress. So Stassi Schroeder on her podcast says, quote, I'm really sick of everyone making everything about race. Everyone giving their impassioned speeches about race and all of that stuff. And I'm like, quote, why is it always just about African Americans? Why aren't the Asians the Asians?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh because it's so fucked up.
No,
like,
it's
like comically stupid.
Yeah, no, like why aren't, quote, the Asians being like, we're not represented? Why aren't like, quote, Native Americans and Latinos saying we're not represented?
It's like,
I'm
bitch,
a white,
they were.
They were. I'm a white, privileged, blonde 28-year-old. So I get that. I know. but I have a podcast and it's an outlet to say what I think.
That's so true, bestie. So true.
She also said that because Moonlight won the Best Picture, quote, it's not about race, it's about acting abilities.
It's like, no one asked, Stassi.
No one asked, but
You're
this
not
really
qualified.
begins a pattern this year that is going to continue for Stassi and ultimately much farther down the line lead to her swift and sudden exit from the world of reality television. So this is the part where I give you a warning about domestic violence. I would like to say maybe skip forward 5-10 minutes just to see if we're wrapped up with this. Again, there are not going to be any graphic details. We're not going to be salacious in this. And I'm going to be as respectful as possible. But I just want to give everyone a warning. So this is your warning. So now that everyone who wants to skip has skipped, I'm going to read 2 headlines from Radar. Now, these headlines, you can find them in the links in our description. You can find these pieces in the links in our description. I am going to summarize because they include graphic details. And I would say that this is sort of like salacious reporting at the time.
Right.
And I am not going to continue being salacious with this information. Now, I think that it is worth discussing because it sort of permeates through the ecosystem of Vanderpump Rules and is tied into something that is also going on camera as well that year. So this is both in 2017, quote, doomed from the start inside Ariana and Jeremy Madix's heartbreaking childhoods, and quote, does Lisa know? New Pump Rules server arrested for beating, threatening to kill ex. So Radar Online, sort of in response to Jeremy Madix getting hired on the TV show, Jeremy Madix being Ariana's younger brother, reports that in Florida, shortly after Jeremy was born in May 1992, I believe he's 7 years younger than Ariana for reference, but could you double check that for me just in case? I think Ariana was 1985 or 1984. Okay, so their parents, James and Tanya, had split and had shared custody of Ariana back in Florida. They briefly get back together and then have Jeremy in 1992 of like that summer.
I would say you're right. It's 92 for him, 85 for Ariana. So 7 years.
Ariana's 85. Yep, 7 years. Okay, cool. Look, I can do math sometimes. So they then get remarried in 1993, but their relationship does not last very long. So in November 1995, a domestic violence situation breaks out at their home. At the time, Tanya tells the responding officers, and then this gets put into record, that they got into an argument. James apparently was verbally berating her and getting sort of like verbally and emotionally abusive or violent with her. Then it gets physical and he puts his hands on her in different ways that, again, I'm not going to repeat here. Out of respect, I think respect for Ariana and Jeremy's, sort of situation.
Yeah,
I don't really
necessary.
feel it just feels gross. So that is sort of the basis for this domestic violence case. And she says that she was injured as a result of this. She hits her head on the countertop, etc. He, on the record back in the 90s, states that she fell. Classic. Yeah. We have heard that one before. I've certainly seen that one before in my own reporting. So this is getting reported on because there is a similar situation in the gossip press sort of playing out with Jeremy. Now, skipping forward about, I can't even remember how actually long this is. Actually, I think like 20 years at this point, 21 years. Jeremy is involved in a similar domestic violence altercation with a girlfriend of his. At the time, This is the math that I did based on the official reporting of when these police records were put in. I have also read other things that I will get to in a second that sort of paint this out a little bit more. But what we know is that Jeremy was essentially 18 when he starts officially dating this woman when he's 18. And she is 37 and has... In the reporting of the police report, it says adult children. I don't know what that necessarily means. Like if they're like adult children means like 18, 20, like I don't know the age of her kids.
Yeah.
But she
Not
has
minors.
kids that are around Jeremy's age, essentially.
Yeah.
And that is important in a second. So she alleges that Jeremy got physical with her one night while drunk, and it's sort of like traveled from like the car to the home to their sort of like their shared property. The cops get called. She tells the cops a story that Jeremy contests. And it's pretty bad. Like, I mean, if you were to read this report of what she said to the cops, it seems pretty bad. Like I will say it was like kind of hard to read it.
It is.
And that is really not why I'm going to talk about it here. However, there is a piece of this that I feel like is sort of the dominant narrative now in the Bravo fandom because of a new narrative that emerges. So I'm going to talk about that as if it is just like, again, purely allegation. No one ever went to court. This was never like tried in front of a jury. Like there isn't much follow-up to this.
There isn't real proof that we could like attest to.
Yeah, it is purely going off of like what both people around the situation said and then what this police record said. So to sort of paint this picture out, a Reddit user emerges, and I did sort of a deep dive on this Reddit user. This is in 2017. And I'm just going to say this, like Reddit is not fact. What you read on Reddit is not a fact. The people on Reddit are often posting with specific goals in mind. You have heard things on Reddit of like karma farming or like all sorts of things that people do to both like spin fake stories or, you know, like misrepresent things or are just like ill-informed talking about something as if they are an expert on the subject, right? There's all sorts of things, and it is a problem across the internet. But the reason why I gave this a little pause was because it is the sort of thing where like if someone came to me with this level of detail, or as a reporter, if I was told this information by like an interested party, obviously I would I would ask for like proof of identity or whatever, but I would get to that step because the level of information that they provide about this seems like it's just like not something that you would just make up.
Yeah,
right?
It's
like
a lot of work and detail.
And people could. Again, we're talking about Bravo fans here. We're talking about Vanderpump Rules fans here. We know that people make shit up, but I will just read what sort of permeates through the Bravo fandom. So on Reddit, there is a user that creates a burner Reddit account specifically for the purpose of responding to this story getting shared in the Bravo Reddit page, and says, like I said, I'm not going to read from this account just like directly because it is salacious. And this Reddit commenter says that, quote, he, meaning Jeremy, hasn't had the easiest time in life. The Reddit commenter claims that this former girlfriend of his, who was almost 20 years his senior, allegedly had groomed him in their relationship, allegedly had known him when he was a child. They said, quote, he got into some trouble when he was a teenager. Then he had this abusive relationship. Then his parents divorced. And only a couple years ago, his dad died. I know he's been trying hard to start a new life and just be happy, which is why when I saw this article and the responses to it, I felt genuinely sick and had to respond. It paints him as this person he's just not, and leaves out the fact that he was an abused teenager with a much older woman who purposefully did things to trick him into getting in trouble with the law. Thankfully, he's in a good relationship now, from what I understand, and his mom and sister are really awesome and supportive. Now, again, I believe I mentioned this, but the police report from this ex-girlfriend and Jeremy was from 2011. So this is like 6 years prior to him coming on the TV show. So some time has passed since then.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that up is just because, again, it sort of like paints out sort of like the 18-year-old, the 37, the detail that she has adult children.
It's like hard not to infer details like that either.
And that is why I bring it up. Now, the real thing that I wanted to sort of get out here is that much later, we hear about Ariana having a previously abusive relationship. And she also sort of like exhibits behaviors on the show of feeling both insecure with Tom, sort of sexually. She talks about having problems sometimes connecting to her body, or like, you know, the way that her body has been talked about by previous partners. And she just sort of like, from an outside perspective and as a survivor of things myself, like, I just get a vibe from her that like she has like sort of had more complicated relationships than we've seen. But also, regardless of the truth of either side of the account with Jeremy, what sort of comes to light, I think, with both Tom Sandoval, her previous relationship, and Jeremy is that for survivors of domestic violence, that is like something that like will continue to affect you for the rest of your life. I know this for myself, right? Like it is something that like shapes the world around you, shapes your perception of the world, and can sort of like put you in situations that you probably wouldn't have found yourself if the world that you kind of grew up in wasn't so chaotic or violent or tumultuous. And I just found that very interesting in light of Sandoval and in light of her reaction to it. And in sort of like retrospect of the time that she has spent on the show, sort of finding out this sort of relationship between her mom and her dad and how violent it seemed from just like reports about it, it just sort of like paints out a lot of this, right? And like, regardless of what happened with Jeremy, it just sort of is like a pattern we see more broadly in Hollywood. I'm thinking more so right now on sort of a completely different note about the recent Quiet on Set documentary, which I'm writing about currently, so it is why it's on my mind. Just about how we see like survivors of violence in childhood sort of like go and in their own life feel also trapped in cycles of violence as adults. So, or
then you see also the reaction of people who haven't really experienced that or said they've experienced like that and having very different reactions to
I don't know. I've come down hard on Ariana this season in our recaps. Not like hard on her, like I don't like her. Obviously, like we love Ariana on this podcast, and like I think that she actually is a pretty cool person just from what I've read about her and what
more so just in her like the function of a cast ensemble.
What I've come down on her is like wanting more for her than sort of like what she is trapped in on this show, and this just sort of like deepened my feelings about her. So sort of on the complete opposite end of the Vanderpump Rules spectrum. And for those of you who have been listening, we are done with that conversation now. So if you were skipping ahead and you caught this part, we are done with the conversation. So Matt, let's talk about James Kennedy, because this is sort of the beginning of the James Kennedy, DJ James Kennedy arc.
Oh my God. The old clips of James Kennedy from when he first joined are like, it's not like he's radically different than he is now, but you're like...
He's experienced a twink death of sorts.
Yes, you could definitely say that. And also, of course, twin flame Lala at his side right in the beginning.
Whoa.
Yeah, major. So this is when James Kennedy starts to do some new music, his new song, Lit. I would say this is also when Vanderpump starts to get people. I mean, James is like, I'm a DJ outside of this, you know, in a sense, and that's like his career. So it starts to become more about the work he's doing on the show, but also outside of it as well. So getting this from Bravo directly, there's some funny clips in here that we'll probably post on the Instagram, of course, because the song is pretty terrible. It's like horrible, and it never comes back up on the show. He says, "This is the most exciting thing I've ever released. What really inspired me to write Top Man was this track called Faithless by Insomnia. These chords, I think I lowered the key or something, but it's just a little slower too. I basically put this trap beat over it, and just Top Man came to me. It's very catchy, British style track. That's kind of what I want to bring to America, is this British style rap that really doesn't blow up here." which I'm like, sure. The
he
teeny
really
Tempa,
is like that type of guy, isn't he?
Yes. The Teeny Tempa, Dizzy Rascal, Skepta, all these are amazing artists that are starting to get more coverage in the US. I think there's room for Top Man. I'm excited. And funny enough, this clip is he's performing this song for the first time in front of Steve Aoki and Bridget Everett, which is just quite an interesting ensemble to have on Watch What Happens Live for this skit.
That is pretty, ooh.
It's a little much.
You know what's so interesting about James Kennedy? I was going to see, because I wanted to say something with my chest about James Kennedy, but
Please do.
I didn't want to be wrong about it. I love the James Kennedys that there's James C. Kennedy, billionaire, CEO and chairman of Cox Enterprises. There's the Irish songwriter. There is a comedian, actor. And then, James Kennedy, cast member on Vanderpump Rules. James doesn't have a Wikipedia page.
Really?
No. But
That
wait,
feels like
does
an oversight.
Scheana Shay has a Wikipedia.
You damn right she
Lala
does.
Kent? Does she have a... Oh, Lala Kent also does not have a Wikipedia.
Y'all need to get your PR managers working.
Randall Emmett does have a Wikipedia.
Well, I'm sure there's a big controversy section on that one.
Okay, wait. Are you ready for who doesn't have a Wikipedia page about them?
Please.
Tom Schwartz, James Kennedy, Brittany, Lala, and then Max, Brett, and Bo,
It's kind of fitting.
and Dana, Charlie, Brock, and Rachel do not, or also Katie Maloney doesn't have
Rachel
a Wikipedia.
should have one. Are you kidding me?
Katie also doesn't have one. And this is actually something
That
I
makes
talked about
the
with
most
Matt.
sense.
Katie Maloney, for those of you who are like, I had someone be like, why haven't you talked about Katie at all? Like, if it's
Sorry.
not clear,
But girl.
Katie doesn't talk about Katie at all. Like, for there to be something to talk about with Katie, she would have to have done something. And aside from being on the show, she hasn't really done something.
Like, babes, there's nothing. There's quite literally nothing.
There's
Unless we want to talk about her mom's Mexican restaurant in Utah, which maybe there's more on that.
Now, I have something actually funny about what she has done. And one of the only news articles that breaks through about that.
There's one. Just one.
There's one SEO hit from 2017 for Katie Maloney. And it actually has to do with a scandal involving Stassi Schroeder and inflammatory comments she says on her podcast. But we'll get there. So, wait, Bridget Everett. Does Bridget Everett say anything to James Kennedy about that when he performs Top Man in front of her?
She has a lapdog that she just covers her face with at the end of the performance. And you see Aoki's just like,
I love Bridget Everett. I love Bridget Everett. And
that's mother and legend.
I mean, talk about an actual mother convention. Bridget Everett's Somebody Somewhere. If we haven't talked about it enough on this podcast.
Television.
It's so good.
It's so good.
There's one other thing that I wanted to say though about the Ariana and Jeremy stuff. You know, obviously we talked about it because Jeremy got cast on the show that year, and I'm not getting into it again. I was just gonna say I was thinking about it while you were talking, and I just wanted to make sure I make my point clear too. That I think also one thing that I've found on this is that time and time again we sort of see the Vanderpump Rules producers fail in their duty of care, because there are so many people both on this show and on Bravo, just generally speaking, that are coming in traumatized or carrying with them deeply traumatizing
Big
situations.
baggage, yes.
And it's not interesting, but it is deeply dark. I find how oftentimes the people that really break through on Bravo, generally speaking, are people that are coming to these shows deeply, deeply troubled and traumatized.
Well, because it's a story to tell.
Whether it's Ariana with her past with her family, or Kim Richards, Bethany Frankel.
Talk about baggage.
You know what I'm saying though, right? Where it's these people that are the Kims, the Bethany Frankels, the all these different people where you're oh God, Kenya on Real Housewives of Atlanta with her mom. It's just stuff where you're damn.
Honestly, the whole cast of Miami.
Yeah, I mean, ooh. So I just wanted to make that clear because I feel like I also didn't make that clear enough in what I was talking about. So we also have something about Lisa Vanderpump gets a new job this year, right?
Yeah.
A very short-lived job, but a job nonetheless.
This is one of those things where it's like a little bit of a plot line on the show and then we never see it again. But Beverly Hills Lifestyle magazine names Lisa Vanderpump the new editor-in-chief. This is in March of 2017. This is from a PR Newswire. Lisa Vanderpump embodies everything Beverly Hills Lifestyle stands for. She is class, grace, and luxury personified, and her personal touch will take Beverly Hills Lifestyle in an exciting direction. Readers will be able to instantly relate to our content, both in print and digital, and we are confident Lisa will be a driving force in taking our already successful brand to new heights. Lisa says, kind of in response to all this, I've always loved being a part of Beverly Hills Lifestyle magazine, and to be asked to be editor-in-chief is not only an honor, but a delight. The magazine has been the epitome of luxury, and I cannot wait for all the exciting things we have planned for its 10-year anniversary relaunch. Not shockingly, joining the editorial team with Lisa Vanderpump is her daughter, Pandora Vanderpump Sabo. Pandora will serve as an executive editor to the magazine. I don't think... How long did this even last for, though? It was like, bloop, and then we never saw it again.
I know. Okay, by the way, no, this never comes up again. So it looks like Pucker and Pout was in existence until like at least 2015.
Oh,
which is
you mean
Katie's blog.
Pucker.
Okay, so there's no hits for it after 2016, however. That's interesting. But yeah, no, I love that she's like, be excited about our new lifestyle brand, Beverly Hills Lifestyle. It's a lifestyle magazine for being in Beverly Hills. Can't wait to be the editorial team with my daughter, Vanderpump Rules. Co-founder Pandora Vanderpump Sabo. She's not the co-founder. I just like that Lisa talks about her like literally the most important woman in the world.
And just so everybody knows, their latest issue was holiday of 2018. So a smooth 1 year after that.
I know.
And she's not listed as editor-in-chief anymore, so.
Whoa.
I love when people just move money around.
Okay, but she kind of literally is just moving money around, right? Like that's what it is.
That's
like,
what I think the whole Vanderpump Rules like entity really is, but that's another conversation.
Wow. Well, okay. So we have, let's see. Oh yes, Pride became the Cornerstone and Emmy hopeful of Vanderpump Rules. Did you take notes about this or did I? I can't remember.
I got the notes on this one.
You got the notes on this one, right? I was like, I remember reading it, but I was like, I don't think I took the notes on this one. So one thing that happens this year also is that like Pride sort of really emerges as like the fixture of Vanderpump Rules. And it makes me so sad now that like the Pride storylines are like completely gone.
You think that they would still like show up for like a booth or like a float moment?
They didn't do Pride last year, right?
No, it hasn't been on the show in years. And they film like late summer now. I feel like they just kind of skip it.
They didn't do it in 2009, I think either. The last
You mean 2019
Pride,
or
no 2021. I mean, or 2022.
Yeah,
because they came back in 2021. But I'm saying the last like Pride episode I can remember is the one where James screams at Rachel. And then Lala screams at Rachel.
That's probably like 2018, 2019 at the latest.
I'm going to look, but why don't you start getting into this
Let me get into it. Yeah, because it is kind of like a big deal. For people who don't know, it's quite literally become like it was, and now not anymore, kind of a staple of the show as an early part of the season where they host, their own Pride float and obviously cater to the enormous crowds that show up to West Hollywood for Pride in the summer. So getting this from Vanity Fair as well. Since season 1, the Gay Pride Parade LA has been a major character on Vanderpump Rules. So like we said, many different parts of the episode. Ken and Lisa have obviously owned restaurants, clubs, and gay bars across, America, but also especially London. And it's been a big fixture of their general community. So before even shooting Vanderpump Rules in 2012, Vanderpump apparently told one of the show's executive producers that one of her conditions was to highlight gay pride during the season. Her restaurant, Sir, of course, sits basically next to the very, maybe now infamous, Abbey in West Hollywood, and is, of course, a prime location for all the different crowds that come to Boys Town for the parade every June. Vanderpump says she wants to be, quote, a conduit between the gay community and the heterosexual community, because every year her primarily straight staff get put into over-the-top costumes and on floats during Pride. She says, quote, I knew that Bravo had this incredible reach. I think our show's gone over 100 different countries, and that's a huge demographic. I've really taken advantage of that. I've taken advantage of it, financially, physically, business-wise, but I've also really used it as a platform for my charities.
Okay, I
like,
love her.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that she's like, pride. Something that I make a lot of money on. Those gay people.
I love taking advantage.
I love to bleed gay people dry.
I mean, if you want to talk about pride being taking advantage of the gay community, we can definitely get there. But
I mean, we
digress.
Let's talk about it. By the way, the episode that I was thinking about was that 2019 WeHo Pride at Tom Tom, but it was in the season 8 that was airing during 2020. Okay. That was the last time that Pride was on Vanderpump Rules, was in season 8.
Wow.
I know.
That's
End
sad.
of an era.
They were
sad.
Like, you know what? Keep those faggots.
And it was Tom Tom's first Pride also.
Because Tom Tom's even more centrally located for
So
it.
Tom Tom killed gay pride. Pass it on.
Confirmed. So if you guys haven't known, in the first season, Pride episode was a pretty big deal because it was basically surrounding Schroeder's deteriorating relationship with then boyfriend Jax Taylor. Instead of dancing on the float, Schroeder and Taylor fought over the decision to allow a fellow server, Scheana Shay, to put suntan lotion on his back. She says to Vanity Fair, quote, I'll never forget that day because the night before was when we broke up and we had done that off camera. And now we were new to reality TV. We didn't really know what we were supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. So when we both showed up separately to the float and no one knew what was going on. At the time in 2017, the most recent Vanderpump Rules Pride episode, which aired in December of 2016, collided with a real life event in a very dramatic way. It was filmed basically the day after the Pulse shooting in Orlando. That morning as well in Los Angeles when they shot the Pride episode, there was also a man who was driving to LA Pride with many weapons in his car and was arrested before entering the festival. So while the cast was apparently not scheduled to appear on a float during the parade in general, they had planned to work obviously at the restaurant for the Pride party, while Lisa Vanderpump rode in on a bus with the British consulate. Vanderpump told Vanity Fair, we had a decision to make, like many others. Do we close shop or do we stand up against this? Do we have courage in the face of adversity? So we took a breath, went down to West Hollywood. I saw people in tears, just in shell shock. There were tanks. The security was extraordinary. With terrorism, it's an unknown quantity. We don't know how many of those fuckers are out there. We never do. So it was basically us thinking, what do we do? Do we capitulate? Do we bring us to our knees? Do they bring us to our knees? Or do we actually stand up and say, no, we won't be beaten? And I think that's what we did. As Vanity Fair obviously reported, some cast members, including Schroeder, also chose not to go to the parade, but instead did a GoFundMe to raise money for the victims of the Pulse shooting. She raised about $5,000 at the time, and others on the cast worked at the restaurant as planned. As Vanderpump told Vanity Fair, I think it was an extraordinary moment for reality television, the fact that the crew were courageous enough to potentially put themselves in harm's way. As Vanity Fair stated, the episode has been submitted for Emmy consideration in the Outstanding Unstructured Reality Program category. Quote, Vanderpump has high hopes that they will receive a nomination. I think it was a salute to the LGBTQ community, showing those 102 people who were either injured or killed that we support you. It was very important to me. It was a moment in time. It was documented. Hopefully it will be on my epitaph, continuing to stand up for what's right. Schroeder also told Vanity Fair at the time, even when she didn't have housewives, Vanderpump tried to make Pride as grand as it could be without her fame, but then she was given that outlet and that platform from Housewives, and she was able to do everything she possibly could. To film it, to put it in magazines, to do interviews about it, to shove it down people's throats, and I mean that as a compliment to her in the best possible way.
Yeah, and I think people really undersell how like groundbreaking it was for reality television at the time. Now, groundbreaking comes with like a few caveats, obviously.
A little bit of
groundbreaking in that like it was just simply, even back in 2017, aside and groundbreaking for like straight TV, right? Like Logo had been doing stuff like
Vanderpump
this.
is extremely heterosexual. So.
Yes. I'm talking like on heterosexual mainstream TV, of which Bravo is heterosexual and mainstream.
Yes.
Try as gay people might to like think that it is otherwise. Obviously places like Logo, RuPaul's Drag Race, a variety of other programming, Queer Eye, the reboot or the original iteration. I think that like gay bachelor show had maybe happened at that point. There was the bisexual season of Are You the One? But like for this kind of programming, for Pride to become sort of like the centerpiece episode of the series every single year, and for Pride to receive as much attention as it did, was just like simply not done. But what's funny about it in retrospect is if you actually go back and watch those episodes, they read like so, like we talk about co-opting culture a lot, and it is just like actual co-optation. Now, I'm not saying like, I'm not going to get into litigating like straight people at Pride. Like that's not really
that discourse
conversation I'm interested in having.
Yeah.
But it's wild to watch the Vanderpump Rules cast react to the Pulse shooting as if they are the ones in danger.
Yes.
And as if there is like a threat to their lives.
Yes.
And also watching people like Stassi and Tom Sandoval and Scheana to an extent, like absolutely 100% make it all about them.
Yeah.
Like this episode is
Stassi stayed
groundbreaking
home.
because like
that episode.
Yeah, like it's groundbreaking in that like it captured a moment that like just was not captured on reality television. But also it's so Vanderpump Rules in that it is like deeply narcissistic.
Oh,
it is
I mean, I remember
narcissistic and nihilistic view of the gay community, but nonetheless, I think it is like a historical artifact.
I mean,
sure.
like when you watch that first season 2 where they do Pride, the whole thing is all of the men going, well, I'm not gay, but like we love that community. They're so great. But also like, don't touch me. And like,
they're like, we're not gay, but we work in West Hollywood and we know we can get drunk gay guys to give us a lot of money at Pride.
Exactly. And you know what?
And also, by the way,
fine.
at that point, the show had not had a single full-time gay cast member. And it still hasn't.
They brought one LGBTQ person on, and
they
horribly
destroyed
wrong.
her sanity for an entire 2 seasons.
Oh,
what wasn't it? What was it that Lala said to her? Like, you're nothing or something. Like,
to Billy.
To Billy.
That reunion was so hard to. I like.
Yeah, I mean,
out.
okay. To be fair,
they said some really
Lala
things to
and
her.
Ariana ate each other out in the back of a car while Tom watched. Like queer women are on this show.
And Katie nowadays, mama.
Katie's gonna marry a woman. I'm just saying, like at that point, an out gay person who was like, my sexuality is gay. Yeah. Was not on the TV show. Actually, the only gay guy in orbit was Jax's allegedly gay Miami boyfriend roommate.
He did loom over the cast.
The gay guy that was obsessed with James Kennedy that they sort of like did like predator gay stuff about for an entire season.
Are you talking about Logan?
Logan.
He's still there. We see him in the
Is
background.
he? Oh,
he was in this season for like, I mean, like in the background. They do not feature him. But I was like, oh, God. I see you. I
also got stuck on the cursed gay guy's Instagram from the Valley. That's like Brittany and Kristen's best friend. And like, I'm fascinated by him because if you're best friends with Kristen and Brittany as a gay guy, it's
5150.
Okay.
The community needs to come in and save you.
We got to speed this up a little bit. I don't want to take too much time now. In the 8th, that's August. I was like, the 8th month of the year is August. So in August, Lisa Vanderpump starts doing press about Vanderpump Dog Rescue Center. Like we said earlier in last episode, she is, quote, horrified by the barbarity of the Yulin Dog Meat Festival in China. She says reportedly 10,000 dogs are killed and eaten every year. And through the Vanderpump Rules Dog Center, she hopes to shine a light on this horrible, horrible thing as she sees it. So Stassi Schroeder really comes out swinging again. So the season is over.
She was not afraid. I'll tell you what.
Or the season is mid-season. They've finished filming season 7, I meant. And that November gets just a real explosion of absolute hell. So
this is when it goes to the bad place.
We're going to skip back now just a little bit, because if you remember at the beginning of the year, Stassi had made some like incendiary comments about Hollywood. And I had said that this is like sort of like a major turning point for the show. And one of the things that really sort of like turns and curdles the attention on Vanderpump Rules, where it goes from being something that was like fun and trashy to seasons 7 through 9, deeply dark and sad and
unsettling,
and tragic,
hard
and
to watch,
evil and hard to watch, begins and ends with people like Kristen, people like Jax, people like Stassi. Now we're going to focus with Stassi this episode, and we're going to end with Stassi. So she comes out swinging on her podcast, criticizing the Me Too movement.
Amazing.
I'm getting this right up from People, but this was reported on November 24th, 2017. Vanderpump Rules, Stassi Schroeder dumped by Advertisers for allegedly criticizing the Me Too campaign. So a number of people just like straight up pull support for Stassi. She is on a podcast, and now this is where I said, remember Pucker and Pout, Katie's short-lived lifestyle blog. She is on the podcast with her friend Jennifer Hoffner, who is the co-founder of, quote, lifestyle and beauty blog Pucker and Pout. And this is the only news hit of any note that wasn't like Katie Maloney spills on season 7 drama or whatever. That Katie was involved in this year was about this. The majority of her blog and like search hits from 2017 are about her co-founder of Pucker and Pout being in part of a conversation bashing Me Too and likening Stassi to Harvey Weinstein. So I'm not making that last part up, by the way.
I know. That's what is so upsetting.
During the podcast, listeners perceive a comment that she makes on it and then a conversation that ensues from that as being both sexist and victim blaming and like extremely derogatory to survivors of sexual assault in Hollywood, specifically survivors of producers like Harvey Weinstein. They launch a Twitter campaign to get advertisers to pull out of the show. People reaches out to reps for Stassi and do not receive comment. On Twitter, she writes, quote, hold up, there is zero bashing, and I repeat myself 3,726 times about how I feel this whole media frenzy has taken away from the victims who were truly assaulted. You may be misinterpreting my point, but because we had the best intentions with this episode. 5 hours later, she tweets, quote, about 5 people heard this podcast, and then everyone else read one quote without the backstory or contents of a 2 hours episode.
Only 5 people listen to your podcast?
Yeah, she's completely downplaying it. And she like puts like a gif of herself like going like whatever, like with that tweet, which you just wanted to know what the vibe was.
Yeah.
She essentially says that like some women seem to be like using Me Too as like an opportunity to like for publicity, that she doesn't necessarily believe all these women have been like sexually assaulted or like are harmed by sexual assault, that like some of them might have been asking for it in that like very victim blamey way that was prevalent amongst people like her in 2017.
Yeah.
So one of the advertisers that pulls out is Rent the Runway, and they actually talk about it on Twitter. They make sort of like this statement directly against Stassi saying,
That's
quote,
when you
we're
know
shocked
it's
by
bad.
Stassi's comments are the Me Too campaign. It goes against everything Rent the Runway stands for as a company and is publicly advocated. Our first ads were slated to run on Monday, but effective immediately, we've terminated our relationship with the podcast. So shortly after this, she apologizes.
2 days later.
She says that she is recording a follow-up episode to the episode that had been aired the previous week titled, Are We on a Male Witch Hunt?
Okay, cancel it. Just
In a apology, and I'm calling this apology in the loosest sense, she writes, quote, "My podcast is an outlet for me to share my unfiltered opinion with my listeners, but on my latest episode, I crossed a line. It was irresponsible for me to make generalized statements about a very serious topic, such as sexual harassment, as it is not my place to speak about anyone else's experiences. I apologize. I will continue to speak my mind on the podcast, but I will put more thought behind my dialogue moving forward." She then follows up that with a tweet later that says, "These 24 hours have been sobering. I want to share your stories on my podcast." Now, I'm using, again, apology in the loosest sense because really pay attention to what she says here. I want you to share your stories on my podcast. On either side, being accused of something you didn't do or being victimized and left helpless.
Jesus
Let's discuss it all.
Fucking Christ.
And notice how she puts being accused of something you didn't do first in the hierarchy of importance that she is looking for.
Just so we all are aware, like a lot of people are faking it, right?
Yeah, like we're just in case I wasn't clear, I do believe people fake this. Now,
I wonder how many people came to her, like, genuinely.
I just have to say this as like someone who like started my career literally like in the lead up to Me Too, and then sort of like gained my footing in media reporting on this, a survivor of sexual assault myself. Like, in case listeners of this podcast are not on the same page as us, like, there is no documentation proving any which way, shape, or form that isn't parroted by like exclusively men's rights activists on the internet and misogynists or rapists themselves, that there is some widespread conspiracy to fabricate sexual assault and rape allegations. I am not saying that it has never happened, but it is not a widespread problem. It is not a prevalent problem. It is not something that is like an epidemic. There was not an epidemic of false reporting.
I think we can say history has shown over the last 7 years that didn't happen either.
Yeah.
There wasn't like, oh, the expose was all a lie.
Exactly. So I just like wanted to clarify that, like really by any stretch of the imagination, that like what she believed was not true and did not come true, nor was it the sort of like lesson from Me Too about this, right? If anything, the lesson was that like Hollywood is still not equipped to talk about the prevalence of sexual violence in Hollywood.
We're still there today.
Yeah, nothing has changed from when she said this, to be clear. There are still people that think this.
We're still fighting this.
Previously in the year, amid the Me Too stuff, she actually made a joke that she was herself like Harvey Weinstein. Quote,
wow.
"It might be too soon, but I'm more of a Harvey Weinstein in relationships. I'm more of the aggressor. It's not like I'm forcing anyone to do something they don't want to do, but I initiate things because I just like it."
So you're telling me she believes Harvey Weinstein is just the aggressor, the initiator in relationships. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah,
in this
it's
time of
interesting
2017.
that like what comes up in 2020 about her is not like, I think, okay, she has a reaction to what happens in 2020 that we will get to in a later episode. But it is interesting in light of the fact that like from the outset, she was like extremely clear about her views on most things since at least 2015 on her podcast. Like 2015, 2016 on various podcasts. Then she gets her own. Like, she has been talking exactly like this. Like, this is not new behavior for Stassi. And it's very much that sort of thing where like 2020 is a real turning point in the culture because the things that people have been saying and doing for years and have been normalized for years are not, just allowed to be just swept on under the rug, right? Like, I think that really marks a major turning point in our culture. We see that because going back, like, she was talking like this for half a decade, like on a mic.
And it's hard not to like do the armchair psychology of if you're someone who's constantly in the headlines and on the show painted as the villainess, as she also likes to claim. It's not shocking per se that you sympathize with people who are allegedly, quote, wrongly accused.
No, I know. And it's just funny that like all the way, like a year,
diva.
almost a year prior to this, when she talks to Complex, she's like, I'm not a mean person. I don't have a mean bone in my body. Like, I don't think I'm that bad of a person unless I'm really delusional. And it's like, no, babe, what we have found during your time on TV is that you are deeply delusional. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this for sure is that this is really the turning point for the Vanderpump Rules fame era. So like what we've been sort of circling is that like with reality television, when you are the product, what you are famous for is yourself as a person. It's not your work. It's not the art you make. It's not the music you put out. It's none of that. It's like you're famous because of you are, say, Scheana Shay on Vanderpump Rules. You're Tom Sandoval on Vanderpump Rules, right? And like we see this like sort of arc happen where like they get on the show and they're like so intensely tied to it, and then they try to break free of the show and they're like desperately trying to crack out of the orbit. Stassi starts a blog. She like sorts of really gains momentum, but she cannot keep the momentum because the thing that she is famous for is being a huge bitch on reality TV and also kind of evil. So that brings her immediately down to earth. All that opportunity and momentum that she had gets just completely clipped. And you have everyone else now on Earth sort of watching it happen. Like, aha, you've joined us back in hell, right? Like, it's very much like the story of Icarus with Stassi.
Absolutely.
Years later, how many years, Matt, exactly till Sandoval?
Till Sandoval, 6 years.
6 years. 6 years later, to be precise, they all become internationally known superstars. And what they are known for is the same drama that kept them tethered and unable to break free of the show in the first place. And I find that fascinating to really like microscopically examine.
It really
that
is like Shakespearean
trajectory.
It's quite a tragedy just to be constantly met with like a harsh reality that you were unable to escape.
So, Matthew, you have a little break for us for a second. Why don't you get into the little detour for us?
I just remember you and I.
Can you make a dolphin noise? Can you make a dolphin noise?
I cannot. I don't even know how to physically.
I'm trying to do it. How do they do it? Like. I almost went like awooga, but that's not like a noise a whale makes. Like. Wait, a wooga whale noise.
Wooga whale noise. I think that's the sound a cartoon animal makes.
Wait, this is us? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna stop crying.
I remember when this happened, you and I were just like literally pissing and shitting ourselves. Over iMessage, just sending pictures back and forth.
I remember when I got this text message from a friend, we were at work.
Oh my God, yes.
This is when
we used to work together still.
It was when we worked together, and I'll never forget, I was like literally retouching a batch of one of those famous sisters, Stuart Weitzman boots. Like, and you sent me this.
Real E for F nose.
And I photoshopped that like cobalt blue pair of Stuart Weitzman boots on them in the photo and sent it back to you.
Girl, get into the iMessage archive. We need to find that.
That was when we were on Skype at work. Remember before Slack was a thing? Like
girl,
we used to use. We used to
use the
use,
90s at this point.
I know. We used Skype at work.
Amazing.
Oh my God. Okay.
So
keep going. I'm sorry.
The headline reads, Scheana, Ariana, and Lala know Vanderpump Rules and SeaWorld sucks. This is directly from PETA.
PETA.
The whale is here. So again, directly from PETA's website.
Whale noise.
Just Quote, just days before the new season premiere and wearing little more than body paint to resemble orcas, Vanderpump Rules star Lala, Ariana, Madix, and Scheana Shay stand shoulder to shoulder in a brand new PETA campaign proclaiming, come together to free the orcas from SeaWorld.
This is me about the cast of Vanderpump Rules. Like,
come together and free the SUR employees.
I'm outside, SUR, with my hands in sort of like a prayer pose above my head in a SUR dress and gold strappy sandal heels. And I'm holding a sign that says free the servers from SUR.
Free the servers from their paisley cocktail napkin dresses.
Yeah. A friend of the show, Alex Better, they got me one of those for my birthday. And shout out, Alex. I love you so much. You're probably listening to this podcast. Love you, Alex. Keep going.
Love you. Again, quoting PETA here, the eye-popping ad urges everyone to put up a united front against the abusement park until the orcas held there are released into seaside sanctuaries.
SUR is an abusement park.
This is all actually about SUR. This is just about Lisa Vanderpump.
Wait, please read the next part.
Okay. This is Lala in the video. Specifically, quote, when I saw the documentary Blackfish, it literally changed my entire life. Orcas have died at SeaWorld, and the fact that none of them died from old age is just insane. Oh, sorry, that last part
Scheana.
there. Yeah. And then Madix adds, there's a better way to do this, and we know the better way. So why not do it?
Wait, I have to watch this video.
Let's just play it fully for everybody, honestly.
PETA,
we might as well. You guys just need to know your history here.
Okay, it's even funnier than I remember. It's so good. Oh my god, the retouching on this photo.
Ariana's hair. Serve.
Hi, I'm Scheana.
I'm Ariana.
I'm Lala.
And we're here with PETA. Today, we're here with PETA shooting a campaign to release the orcas into seaside sanctuaries from SeaWorld.
When I saw the documentary
She's so
Blackfish,
young.
it literally changed my entire life. I found my passion and I found my voice, and I will not stop until any place like SeaWorld is
Scheana's
completely
crying.
shut down.
Orcas have died at SeaWorld, and the fact that none of them died from old age is just insane.
Places like SeaWorld or the Miami Seaquarium, it is the equivalent to me taking a baby and putting them in a bathtub and having them grow up there. When you take a mammal of that size and put it into basically a swimming pool, you can't expect it to do anything else besides self-destruct.
Orcas are very social animals, and they're very intelligent animals. Each pod has their
nipples
own
are, like,
language.
literally
So you
out.
have orcas from all different pods who are living in these bathtubs, and they're fighting with each other because they have no way of communicating. They're confused, and they're full of anguish, and it shouldn't be that way. There's a better way to do this, and we know the better way, so why not do it?
Release the orcas to seaside sanctuaries so they can be in their normal habitat.
I know,
and
you just have to see the
confined
visuals, y'all.
To small tanks.
Lala crying in a
It's time for us
full
to
orca
open our
body
eyes.
thing.
I just encourage anybody with children to teach them SeaWorld is not a fun place to be. They are torturing animals. And I just really hope that people can
Okay, the photo of it is
No, we're not laughing at what they're saying, but we'll have on the Instagram, but you have to see the visuals because it is just so funny. I'm sorry.
Okay, this is what I was saying. By the way, somebody stole this tweet that I made word for word and repeated it on TikTok last year during Sandoval.
Wait,
and it was
what?
like the most upset I've ever been about TikTok because I mean, there's more things to be upset about, but I said a joke about like Vanderpump Rules in this like sort of new era of like VPR hanger-on. And like this new generation of fans that are like coming into the show expecting what Sandoval was from the show, but not really knowing their herstory, their SUR story.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sorry. Their SUR story?
Your SUR story, your pump story. So I had made a joke like that. Unless you were there the day Ariana, Madix, and Scheana Shay posted their PETA campaign on Instagram, I don't want to hear from you about Vanderpump Rules. If you were not there when they went to drag in New Orleans, I don't want to hear what you have to say. if you did not watch Katie's hair color change live 15 different times in one season, you're not allowed to talk about Vanderpump Rules professionally. I'm sorry. Like, you're just not.
There are
like,
some initiation rites that must be completed.
You're not. Like, I literally have the purple heart of Vanderpump Rules culture reporting, okay? Like, I don't want to hear from you. So anyways, I just feel very special about that PETA campaign.
Who stole
it really
that?
is something that I think about. So, Lala has a new little press blurb at the end of this year. Save the stuff about the man because I just want this to be lip gloss because we have some more stuff about that a little bit later.
Okay. Yeah. So getting this from Us Weekly, Lala Kent spills on her new lip gloss line.
Spills.
Vanderpump Rules and her relationship status. Yeah, we'll try to keep some of that for later because it's a lot. It's a lot in hindsight. Again, quoting this from Us Weekly, Lala Kent is giving us lip. The Vanderpump Rules personality and self-proclaimed product whore launched Give Them Lala, her first line of 6 cruelty-free lip glosses. On December 4th, Monday, on the same day as the season 6 premiere of her Bravo show. Quote, she narrowed down her first collection from 79 potential shades to 6 and has been hands-on throughout the process. She tells Us Weekly at the time, all the colors, I picked them and they're actual colors I wear. I have top-notch chemists that I work with. I've had all hands and feet in everything, from the photos to picking the colors to the packaging, all of it. Us Weekly also says some of her products are named after a Bravo co-star as well as a rumored love interest, as well as past storylines. She says to us, the names are really fun. We have James, we have Randy, we have Mistress, we have The Affair. While Kent did confirm that James was named after James Candy, she played coy when asked who Randy was named for. And we'll get more into that in a bit later. I did do a quick Google of just like, because now Give Them Lala is an even bigger brand. I mean, it's, I'm sure multitudes what it was when it started, but I found a Reddit thread all the way back from 2017, basically at the time of this coming out, of people genuinely like, is it actually good? Like, are the products good? And quite literally every single comment was like, it's actually really good. Like, it's actually pretty great. People said, I have the lip gloss. It's amazing. I always get compliments. Obsessed with their lip gloss. I love Randy and The Affair. I get so many compliments. But oh my God, only my friends know where I got it from because they make fun of me, but they're so #worth it. People even compare it to Kim and Kylie's shades and said Lala's is better. People that say they're not, you know, even really that deep into makeup or gloss even love their product as well. So kind of have to hand it to her, honestly, as someone to actually make a relatively successful product.
I mean, I wouldn't call it successful, but
well,
it is.
She has an office in the conference room now.
Well, remember, there's
we don't have a conference room.
We're in a conference room right now, you bitch. So, Tom and Ariana to Us Weekly give an exclusive interview for season 6. Vanderpump Rules, Tom Sandoval, Ariana Madix, Tease season 6, Old Habits Die Hard. This is from 2017. So I'm just going to read a little brief excerpt here because I want to bring full circle the conversation that we had earlier about Ariana, but then set up Sandoval in many ways, just like we did with the Tom's music stuff last week. So individually this season, Ariana is talking about, I struggled a lot. Obviously, I haven't seen the episode, so I don't know if they're going to show it or that was just something I was feeling internally. I know what I was really feeling. I was really struggling a lot with some things I dealt with in my past and trying to move forward and create a future for myself and create a future for Tom. That I feel like was my biggest hurdle to overcome this season. Us Weekly says, quote, one of the big things for you, Tom, this season is your restaurant with Lisa. What is it going like from being her employee to business partner? What was that dynamic like with her? So he's talking about opening up Tom Tom, which we will get to next season or next week. Tom Sandoval says, quote, opening up a bar is something I've always dreamed of doing. So when the opportunity presented itself, something I get a little excited. I have a tendency to overstep my boundaries, but in any relationship, when you're building a working relationship together, you have a tendency to butt heads and disagree. And obviously me and Lisa come from different places and we're at different places in our lives. It's been awesome in a lot of ways, but of course there have been some hiccups, but we're still here getting things going. So ... Put a pin in Tom. We are going to be spending next episode talking about that. So Vanderpump Rules star Ariana Madix reveals she was in an emotionally abusive relationship. This is from January 8th, 2018. It is about an episode from season 6, but people got the exact quotes from it. I just want to tie this up now so that we can put a pin in this until towards basically the end of this series we're running. Quote, I don't want anyone touching my vagina pretty much ever. I'm uncomfortable with my vagina, she says on camera. Quote, I was in a really mentally and emotionally abusive relationship where I was told my vagina was disgusting and my cellulite and quote, why do you wear that? And why don't you dress like this? And how come you don't do this like those girls? And those things don't go away. I've always had these issues with my self-esteem, with my body, these things from my past. And when Tom and I started dating, I think the newness of it was just so exciting. I kind of didn't want to hear it in my own head. And then as the relationship matured and grew, that real stuff from my past has just developed into this huge monster that now takes up a big space in my head.
Oof.
It's like gutting to read in hindsight because
it's
we
sad.
know where this goes, and it's like literally Tom, like that's where I'm never gonna be on the like Tom Sandoval like whatever, it's an affair train. Like
Yeah.
it is an affair, but like the whole line that he pushes on this show of like, what did you want me to do? It's like, well, I don't know. Like if like I certainly wouldn't destroy the heart and soul and mind of this girl who I know has these issues. Like,
Also
from her
specifically to be
past,
like,
who I apparently loved and cared about at one point.
I mean, the whole narrative is that she finally feels like she can trust somebody with Tom, and that she can trust not only her mind but her body with him, and then he quite literally exploits that for a year, basically behind her.
I mean, let's be real, many years.
Exploits but cheats specifically.
So
Yeah.
Stassi Schroeder talks to The Cut about the sexual harassment podcast disaster. Why don't you read for The Cut and I'll read for Ariana?
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, Stassi. And then we have one last thing to end with and we'll be done for today.
So The Cut asks Stassi, were you surprised by the response to it?
And this is from December 6th, by the way, just in case I didn't say that. Quote, yeah, I was very surprised. You know, I'm so used to talking with my friends and family about things, and I treat my podcast the same way, so you never know how someone's going to take what you say. I was surprised because I didn't mean any harm by it. I never would want to hurt anyone, and so that's what's surprising, that people can be mad at you when you only have good intentions.
Sorry, there's so much I want to say.
No,
about
I know,
that, but
I
we
know.
all know how we feel. A few of your advertisers said publicly that they were going to drop their ads. How much does that affect you financially?
I understand they have to protect their brand, but I have a lot on them that are standing by me, and then I have new ones now coming to me, so it balances out. And this is actually something that we see with her second cancellation, where it's like there's a bunch of people that drop her, and then there are people just as really ready and willing, to make money off of a canceled person and the attention that they are going to get. So
I bet you there is a huge deep dive one could do on the industry of people who are against the Me Too movement and the advertisers that love that audience. Anyway, this question's insane. When Charles Manson died, you tweeted that you wish you threw Pinot Grigio in his face. Have you read a lot about him?
I'm big into, I sound crazy when I say this, murder stories. We know those, Stassi. I love horror films and documentaries on that stuff, so of course I know the Charles Manson stories. It was just a huge thing that he died. I wish I would have been able to throw a glass of wine in his face.
I remember on Inauguration Day, you praised Melania Trump's outfit. Now, almost a year later, what do you think she and her husband are doing in the White House?
I don't have any political thoughts. Style-wise, I think Melania is killing it. I think Ivanka, style-wise, is killing it. I mean, they've got a good wardrobe. That first outfit was all sky blue. Sky blue is my favorite color. So I was like, that's what I would wear.
Anyway.
Just go.
Did you vote in the election?
I will not say.
If you voted, or who you voted for?
Both. I don't talk about politics.
Well,
Sure.
if somebody was going to become president from Vanderpump Rules, who would?
It would be me.
What would your platform be?
Wine for everyone. And that is called media training and deflection.
She was like, I know that one.
We are not going to really get into this, but just to set up what the next episode is going to get into, Vanderpump Rules star Lala Kent and married mystery lover caught kissing. This is from the end of the year, December 9th, 2017. Page 6 obtains photos and videos of Lala Kent canoodling with producer Randall Emmett at a FabFitFun event at the SLS Hotel in Beverly Hills the week before.
That might be the worst
before.
set of words uttered together.
I know. Don't even get me started.
Randall Emmett, FabFitFun, SLS Hotel in Beverly Hills.
So they say, according to this insider, he was being cautious, but she was not being shy, and that they didn't leave each other's side the whole night. And as Page 6 reported at the time, while they were seen together, Randall was still married to actress Amber Childers, who starred in
Yes.
Ray Donovan, and the couple has 2 children together. So that is that on that. And that is just a little sneak peek in the worst kind of way about where this series is going.
The next one's going to be pretty bad. It's going to be rough.
Yeah,
It's
going to be really bad.
It's going to be ugly.
It's going to be about as ugly as this show can possibly get. So thank you all for listening to this episode. It was a little bit longer this week, but this was a year where a decade happens, as they say.
Last episode was 2 hours, so this is
Well, that's
shorter,
true.
if anything.
That's true. That's true. I know. It's like
This
with
is
these
our
series.
average.
Yeah, it's with these series. It's like impossible to get under an hour, but won't stop me from trying. I'm getting to this point though where I've like read so much information about Vanderpump Rules, and I know like
It's kinda
so many
scary.
dates up in my head, and I've read so many interviews and watched so many videos that I'm so ready to do like 57 Hot Topics episodes
Literally?
after this is done.
Well, now that we're done with the award season, we're finally free. We're finally free.
I know, we really timed this series perfectly.
Like, I want to talk about the dumb shit again. I mean, different dumb shit, you know.
Dumb shit in the worst way. So, by the way, I have some exciting stuff to talk to you about off podcast about live show stuff. So we have to go because things are happening here on Eating for Free, the podcast
moving,
running live from the internet. They're accelerating like Large Hadron Collider style. And I was also going to say, we really try not to say this on this podcast, you guys, but please go rate and review our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. It literally means so much. Leave us one on Spotify, leave us one on Apple Music. It truly is such a help to us, and it means a lot. And we love reading all the nice stuff that you have to say. And especially, I love seeing the ones from people who discovered this podcast because of our Vanderpump Rules series, just like the ones that came to us for Ariana Grande. Like, we sort of love collecting different kinds of podcast listener, and we've gotten some reviews from people who came to this because of it, and just hearing people say that we have good research and stuff like that always means a lot. So we love your reviews. We love your 5 stars. Go on, toss them out. We're not going to beg again for a couple episodes, so consider yourselves spared. Go follow us on Patreon. You can hear all of that and more on Patreon. All of our Sex in the City discussions. I think we're like almost at episode 30 of Beautiful Women updates, so that's been huge. We've been doing that podcast for like a solid year. We also have recaps of Vanderpump Rules, the most recent season, up on Patreon as well. We have Hot Topics episodes. We're going to be recapping the Valley now. Like, there's so much to get from our Patreon. And we just love seeing all of the little comments that you guys leave. We got, by the way, some tea in our DMs. That is all I've been able to think about. So I love it when you guys message us on Patreon. Always know that you can send us DMs. You can message us, reach out, tell us what you think, give us the tea, and talk to each other in the comments there. It's really exciting to read what you guys have to say, especially when it's like Matt and I will talk about something that we feel like it's like an obscure niche interest of ours, and then somebody comes out of the woodworks to be like,
they're like,
by the way,
I'm
I'm actually the president of that niche interest, and I'm going to tell you everything. So we love that. So
beautiful,
I'm excited
beautiful.
to talk about that off camera, as well as this live show stuff that I've been working on. So yeah, that's all.
Right.
That's all I've got. Do you have anything you want to plug?
Not at the moment, love. We'll see. We'll talk about when things happen.
Okay.
How about that?
3,
Watch this space.
2,
1.
1. Come together to free the orcas at SeaWorld. Goodbye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Eating for Free, a podcast created, co-hosted, written, researched, and produced by myself, Joan Summers, and Matthew Lawson, with original theme music by Sam Huntington of Crooks and Nannies. If you liked what you heard today, you can go to patreon.com/eatingforfree to get access to weekly bonus episodes, as well as access to my other podcast, Beautiful Women Updates, hosted by myself and Alex V. Green.
You can also go to eatingforfree.com to get access to the links to our research from today's episode, as well as merch and so much more.